Hi everyone, my name is Anushka. Welcome back to the channel and to a new episode of Hear&How. Today I'll be chatting with Maitreya Ghorpade, who is an environmental lawyer and also runs his own environmental podcast called Unearth. We chat about the process of creation, how to adopt more mindful practices in your daily life, and how to have a little bit of fun as you work to save the environment. Go check it out. This has been long time that we have been trying to make it happen and it's happening and I'm so excited. For this episode especially, I have dressed differently and because of what we're going to chat about.
Awesome. Green is a great color, no doubt.
We all know that you're actually an environmental lawyer and that you run your own podcast, which is called What Unearth. And yes. I really want to talk to you a little bit about where this all started. Like, what was your childhood like? What were the inspirations that you had around you that led you to this career path? So talk to me a little bit about childhood experiences. I know your father is actually into organic farming as well. So was that, a big inspiration, or what, did you have like an aha moment and you decided to get into it?
So I wouldn't say I had an aha moment, maybe like many small aha moments that sort of added up to one big aha life decision. But yes, like you said, my dad is a huge influence in my life. And as a child, he would take us to the farm that we have, that he has over the past 25 years just immersed himself in and made it into something just beautiful. But as a kid, I hated the farm. I was like, where's my TV? There's no hot water here. It was like, it's a farm, so it's farm like, and it's not like a fancy farmhouse. It's a very rustic, it's a very rural farmhouse he's designed it in a very environmentally sustainable way, and I think that really speaks to how unsustainable city life is getting. That a sustainable rural life just seems like what is this nonsense. But anyway, so that's how it started for me. I hated going to the farm, but I think begrudgingly the sort of beauty of nature was kind of kept drilled into my head, and I think along the lines I started to realize how fantastic nature really is. It's so incredible. It's so technologically advanced, it's so nuanced, so complicated, and the city life just kind of blocks all of that away, and you're left with very little exposure to nature. So that's how my exposure to nature started. And how I got into law was basically, so I'm really bad at maths and science. I know. I know you feel
like a process of elimination, bad at math, bad at science.
That's basic. So that's how it started. That engineering तो नहीं होगा मेरे से, मजा भी नहीं आता इसमें. तो I mean, what is the one sort of non-engineering medical field that society थोड़ा बहुत respects? Right, so that was law. हाँ, तो थोड़ा you have sanction.
Not too much like artist. That's like way at the bottom.
I didn't have the balls to be an artist. No. I needed societal approval. Okay, I need people to be like, yes, you're doing good job. So I thought, okay, law is, why not? I was a debater as a kid also. So law seemed to make the perfect sense. And but again, then it wasn't environmental law specifically. It was just law as a field.
Correct.
Then when I got into law school, and the more I studied law, and the more I realized that this is such a powerful tool. It's a weapon, and it's a shield, and it's all these wonderful things, because what the law is basically is our collective agreement on what is right and what is wrong, and to use that collective agreement to shape society for equality and for the betterment of everyone. I think that really just spoke to me. That was just like, wow, this is something that makes sense. It's big enough for me to feel like I'm doing something meaningful with my life. And at the same time, it allows me to actually pursue the kinds of betterment that I want to see in society. So I got into that frame of mind because like I interned everywhere. I interned with corporate law firms, I interned with Supreme Court advocates, everyone. And I was just like, what is this nonsense? I don't want to make some rich guy richer or some company more money. That's such a waste of a law degree. So I was very interested in social interest litigation, and then climate change and this the very real existential threat that we are all facing, that we kind of just put on mute every now and then, is very real, and I remind myself of it. And I guess that really just kind of solidified my interest in environmental law. And the more I got into it, I interned at a couple of places, and it just seemed like, wow, what a wonderful way to use your time. What a wonderful thing to do all day to fight for the environment. So that's basically how I got in. I mean, so it's all like a bunch of factors, right? My early exposure to nature, my disillusionment with like corporate culture, and I was so lucky to work with people who have done really great environmental law work. So that was basically it, and that's how I got into it, and I've been doing it for about a year and a half now, ever since I graduated. So it is pretty interesting.
Do you think that because you're a lawyer, because you sometimes are able to see change happen in a very direct way, and you can make that change happen in a very direct way, do you think it's easier to to stay focused and motivated and know that things are changing? Because for someone like me or like a third person, it is it sometimes is you almost feel hopeless, where you feel like I'm doing something, I'm making changes, I want to make a bigger impact, but you aren't directly responsible for making those, like, to see those happen rather. So do you think it's easier to stay in this field because you're a lawyer, because you somewhere have some control?
Yeah. So, I mean, this might seem a slightly counterintuitive answer, but I face like defeat pretty much on a weekly or a monthly basis doing what I do, because the courts, the system is sort of rigged against us. It's one thing to sit and chat and discuss, why protection of the environment is so important, but to take that to court and to actually use that as an argument, to say that don't do this particular act, please stop doing this. I know it's going to make people money. I know it's going to apparently provide some kind of benefits and progress and development. But so it's very difficult for me to actually make that argument a successful argument in court. So you're right when you say that in many ways our actions as lawyers do have some sort of concrete cause and effect. Like, you can see it. It's sort of much more abstract as an artist. But at the same time, what I've realized is that any kind of real sustainable change will never happen from like a top down way. It's never going to be some big authority saying make a change and then everyone suddenly changes, and social changes happens. But it's usually more, it stems from people like very much people like you, like artists and thinkers and poets and all those people that we just relegate to saying that what are you even doing with your life. I think these guys are the ones who have made so much difference. And it's really sad because the way we tell history, it's often a history of war, it's a history of conquest. We never talk about how, I mean, like, so we talk about like Napoleon, but we never talk about like Napoleon's mother, who played such a huge role, or his friends. I don't know, I mean, this is just an offhand example, but but so we never talk about those things, and that sort of shapes our understanding of what we think is impactful and what we think is a useless activity. But what I've really realized is that it's like people who shape thoughts, which is very difficult to gauge who's shaping a thought and who's not, like, because it's often it's not like a direct cause effect relationship, right? It all adds up. But those are the people who really end up making sustainable change, and which is why I'm not like saying that a law degree doesn't help me make sustainable change as well. It's just I've realized that real actual change happens from the ground up and not from a court or a minister or a powerful company saying that now do this and everyone suddenly changes. They those kind of up down top down decisions or orders or whatever, they have some effect, but what I've realized is the real change is with people like you. So yeah, I mean I'm sure it can be very disillusioning as an artist, because you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Does society appreciate it? Is anyone making it? Is it making a difference in anyone's life? And that's something I ask myself with my podcast as well. Why am I doing this? But that's when I realized that it's okay if I don't have like a million people listening to every word I say, or like even if I can like impact one mind. I mean, that's beautiful. And we, in this like today's numbers game age, it's all about, oh, who can go viral. And you made a video about that which I thought was beautiful. And who has the biggest numbers and who hits like 1 million subscribers. I mean, okay, sure, that's great. But if you can truly impact even one mind, I think that's, wow, that is beautiful. And yeah, I think like we've lost a little touch of that. So maybe we should change the way we talk about these things a little bit. That's what I feel.
Okay, so that's such a lovely answer, that the real change actually happens from the ground up. And although sometimes I think we're aware of this, it's difficult to convince ourselves of it. And like you said, especially as creative people who anyway are just looked down upon in general when it comes to like a lucrative career option. But when you remind yourself of why you do what you do, it kind of makes it all worth it. Or when even one other person comes to you and says, you know what, I saw this thing that you made and it impacted me in some way, I thought about it later. I was like, you're thinking about something which I made,
That's amazing, isn't it? That's so beautiful.
Mind-blowing. So this is a great segue into your podcast. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why you decided to start this podcast, which is called What Unearth, and I love the name. And I love the names of your episodes because they all have some sort of wordplay going on, which is very cool. So tell me why a podcast and what made you start it really?
Firstly, thank you so much for like noticing those puns, and like I feel like I try like a lot. I think a lot about it, and sometimes I feel like nobody even notices. But that's okay. It's like one person notices. Yeah, it is time well spent. So what got me interested in the podcast? Now, I sort of. Since like 2018, when I really got into the environmental movement, I have been continuously meeting and interacting with and learning about and talking to just fascinating people, like mind-blowing people who have done like, to me, I mean, they should be celebrities, the kind of work they've done. They should be like, we should have, like massive media followings on them because they've done such wonderful work. And to me, I just kept seeing them, and it was when I would look at the work they do, I'd be like, wow, why do I not know this already? It's first of all so relevant to what I like, and even if I didn't give a shit about it, it's so like just fundamentally beautiful that people should know about this. So on one level, it's just to view a person's work by itself, and to view it by its merits, regardless of what field they're doing it in. And then to find out that they're doing it in a field that you love, and that those people are usually so approachable. So these are like basically superstars in my field, and I could just basically call them and have a conversation with them. So I thought that these people are like gems, and they need to be talked about more, because their story, it shows us like what it takes to even be successful. And I define success in a completely non-capitalist way here. It's like it's not about having cars or bungalows or a big bank balance. It's about actually impacting people's life. That for me is what success is. So I saw these incredibly successful people who are so approachable and whose stories are so inspiring, because they've often overcome such adversity, the environment and climate change is now sort of a deal, but like 30 years ago nobody really cared about it. There were like these brief pockets of interest, and to me that's so beautiful because these guys had like the vision to see that, hey, we're doing something really bad right now, it's going to lead to really messed up things in the future. So I met these people, I spoke to them, I learned about them, and I'm like, you know what, these people, their stories need to come out, and in any way that I can further the conversation, increase the discourse on their lives, I want to do that. So What or Not started with basically two ideas. One, to show the world that, listen, we're doing something that is very unearthed, that is very against the very fundamental nature of the planet. We are treating it in a way that is completely unsustainable, and we're doing ourselves a massive disservice because we are as much part of the earth as like trees or the rivers. We are like the ecosystem. So one idea was to show the world or to talk about these problems, but much more important than talking about problems was talking about stories of hope and inspiration, and just great work being done. Because as someone who was getting into environment and didn't see like clear figures or leaders or role models, that I could look up to, like like a like a movie star or like a sports star or something, that we don't have that in the environment field, or so I thought. And yeah. So then I figured, what, this is something that people have to talk about. I want to learn from them as well. And this is like a secret that I haven't told anyone. But I figured, like, simply calling them up and being like, hey, you want to chat for half an hour, I have some questions, would be damn weird. So I like make it into, hey, you want to have a podcast? and and basically it's just me chatting with them for like half an hour, 40 minutes, trying to figure out, trying to learn, trying to tell their story. And I've been so lucky because such wonderful people who have so accomplished have come to my show, have spoken to me, and I have some like increasingly like more well-known celebrities lined up. So I mean, it's fascinating. It's been such an incredible response both from the audience and from my guests, because they've all been so willing. And like for me, a celebrity being so just open to talk and to share their ideas is unheard of. I mean, I don't think I can go to like Shah Rukh Khan and be like, bro, can you tell me like how to act a little bit?
That's something I see in most fields, even in like my field, where people are very guarded with the kind of things that they talk about. And there are very rare people who actually are so transparent and honest about how they do what they do. And that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's so I mean, I haven't found anyone who's got like trade secrets that they want to protect. Everyone's willing to share their deepest like success stories and how they went about it, because I think like in the environment field, people realize that your success is my success. If you succeed in doing something in the true sense of success, then everyone is better off. We're all
everyone succeeds.
I know, isn't that fascinating? When everyone's gain is everyone's gain. So I think that's it's been just every day. I've been so grateful with the response that I'm getting. I didn't think that even like there would be any more than like 3-4 people who listen to my podcast. I thought one of them would be my mom. My mom doesn't really listen to it too much. she's not so interested in it. But surprisingly, like there have been, I mean, people from like Mexico and Austria and Denmark. I'm like, what are you guys doing listening to my show? The internet is so beautiful that way. So I've been very glad. And yeah, it's basically been my attempt to learn and at the same time help other people learn just all the beauty that's out there.
Wow, so lovely, Maitreya. It's feeling like I feel so good listening to someone so passionate about what they're doing. It's rare. Unfortunately, it's rare, but it's beautiful to listen to.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how did you plan for this? How much, like, because do it yourself is a big factor when you start something like this. How do you organize your time, because you also do something, like you have a job, other job. So what are some things that you'd like to share with people if they were thinking of starting something on the side which they were very into, very passionate about, but they just don't know where to start? So how did you do that? Did you just start and then kind of make it up as you went? But what were the structures that you set in place?
Yeah. So I suffered from a severe case of like procrastination for the longest time. And, I think like procrastination is very misunderstood because most people just dismiss it as being lazy. But I think there is so much more to procrastination that I've learned about recently. And, so when I look back on my many months of procrastination, it is, in fact, some might say even years that I just procrastinated on many ideas that I had, was because of a fear of failure, because I was afraid that I'd put something out and people would mock me and people would laugh at me and people would troll me. So I just kept procrastinating. I'm like, no, let me work on it a little bit more. Let me refine it a little bit. Let the idea get absolutely perfect, then I'll execute it. So this fear of failure held me back for many months. It still continues to, in some ways, hold me back. It's not like I've beaten it, but what I then started realizing is that this was around the start of this year, because I had been working where I am right now in my current job for some time, and I'm like, you know what? I have to do something more. I have to uh, talk about it. I wanted to make videos before, to be honest. I wanted to become like some kind of, like those many YouTubers that we have these days.
Who?
But
What?
no, the shitty ones. I mean the shitty ones, not good ones like you. I mean, for me initially it was less about the work and more about the numbers. I wanted to go viral as much as the next guy, and I felt like, hey, if this idiot who is talking such like regular mediocre stuff can go viral, why can't I? So it was in some ways a superiority complex fighting with this fear of failure, and that sort of didn't lead anywhere for many months. So I was just stuck for many months. Then I realized that I feel so bad being stuck where I am. There's no way I can feel this bad if I put something out. I'm sure I'll feel, maybe I don't know how I'll feel, but I'm sure I won't feel this bad. I won't be like, what am I doing with my life? Whatever it is, I'll be doing something and it'll lead to something. So with this idea that even if my every show is shit, it's maybe one day going to lead to 5 years, 10 years down the line, going to lead to something good. So with this idea, I then decided that I just have to put something out. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter, if it's perfect or not. Doesn't mean I put out something for the heck of it, but I'm not going to keep fine tuning a product until it's absolutely flawless. That shouldn't be my threshold. Shouldn't be like perfection. It should be something that is meaningful, something that I have put my heart into, and yeah, I've just put out. So if any of our listeners are on the same thing that they want to create, and I'm sure everyone wants to create, it's a very primal urge and it's beautiful. If you're creating something from nothing, I mean, that's nothing short of an act of God to me. There's blank and you make something that's wow. That's fascinating. So yes, creation to me is an act of God, because you there's nothing and you create something. To me, that is, I mean, we often lose sight of how profoundly beautiful that is, and we get into the merits of the art and what it is and what it isn't. But to me, simply the act of creation, to make something from nothing, if you're able to do it, you have my respect. uh, and I think we should all like value each other more for doing those things. And so if there are any listeners out there, who are unsure of uh, product that they, content in any way that you want to create, it doesn't have to be meaningful or it doesn't have to contribute to anything. It could just be like an expression of who you are. I think that is fascinating, and that is so important that we we stop viewing art as something that has to be perfect, and we realize that because art is what it is perfect by that definition. Because what is perfection even? Perfection is like a slight is like a standard that we set, an abstract standard that we set, and then we feel bad when we fail to live up to this abstract standard. Whereas if we redefine perfection to mean something that is absolutely 100% the way it is, that is what makes it perfect. Not some random scale of goodness, or being better. It's something is perfect because it is. That is what makes it perfect. Like every human is perfect because they are the only way they are. I mean nobody else is what they are.
One of a kind, essentially.
Yeah. So for me it's like yeah, that for me, that idea that I'm never going to reach perfection because it's an artificial construct that I've created for myself. So I should not hold myself to that standard. I should do something that makes me happy and that I feel adds value. So I think these are the metrics I use whenever I'm producing a show. It's that, am I would I want to listen to something like this? Is anyone's life going to be better off because of it? Is it entertaining in some ways? Because I think like fun should be everywhere. Like everything you do should be fun. Why do anything that's boring? So that's yeah. So to any listeners out there, don't like, there's something that I try to remind myself is that great is the enemy of good. you know so you're always going to be uh, after this greatness, but in that pursuit of greatness you often don't do a lot of good things which you should not do, according to me. So yeah,
That's
what
so
I
true,
think.
though, and I definitely agree. Where I do feel like if there's something you actually really want to do, the only two things that hold you back are either you're afraid, so it's a fear of some sort, or then you're actually lazy, which also may be linked to a fear of some sort. So I agree with you. Where unless you do it, you'll never know what it lacks. You'll never know how you can grow, and you'll never know how it feels. And when you feel that when you do it the first time, you want to experience it again and again. It's like a
Like
high of
anything
sorts.
that's fun, yeah, you want more of it, you're drawn to it.
So, what would you say? Because so far it sounds like it sounds like a breeze, but I'm sure there have been challenges and things, which you had to figure out and work around. What would you say has been the most challenging aspect of creating this podcast or of creating in general?
Well, so I feel, for me, I have these certain set ideas of how I want a podcast to sound before I've even made it. And I think that is something that is like a huge challenge that I have to try to overcome constantly. Because when you go into anything with like a preconceived bias, you are limiting yourself. You're saying that this has to be like this, and this is what's going to be the best way for it to be. So for me, the biggest challenge has been just letting go. Letting go of this idea of control, letting go of uh, this false notion that I will perfectly again, like this whole idea of letting go of perfect has been my biggest idea. Because when you let go of perfect, you realize that wow, what is I'm actually getting is also so beautiful. It's also so enriching, and it's maybe even more enriching than the perfect envision idea that I had envisioned. So for me, the biggest challenge has been to let go, and at the same time, another big challenge for me has been the uh, I have been like, so a lot of the topics I talk about are very dreary. They're very, if you look at them, they're pretty disheartening. They're pretty, because it'll be something like climate science, and climate denial. I had an episode on that. Economics and ecology, I had one on water private. So all issues that basically, if you read about, you get very sad. because the firstly the media portrays them in that way, and also because they are really saddening news. I mean, it's not the media's fault, that's not the lying. So for me, a big challenge has been to make it fun, to make the podcast just interesting, just to make it approachable, to make it something that you would listen to and have a laugh. It's very easy to just simply report, oh, this is what happened, or this is what this person said. I mean, there's skill involved in that as well, but to me, I want to make everything I do fun.
The balance is important and it's not easy to achieve, and I think you do that really well in your podcast. I've listened to, I think, most of the episodes, and I think the way that you talk to people also who have been doing what they do for so many years, they have so much experience, they're, like you said, visionaries. And when I put myself in your spot, it's extremely overwhelming, and it's stressful to talk to someone like that, to ask them questions, to, involve them and make them feel like they're getting something out of this as well. And I think you do that in a very fun way.
Absolutely. Because I don't want them to look back on the interview and be like, oh, what a waste of time. I want them to also feel like, yeah, this guy, he's someone I should look out for. Or, he's doing good work as well, whatever it is. So I definitely, you're absolutely right. It's so intimidating, speaking to someone like Stalin Dayanand, for example, who, led the RA movement in many ways. And he's still very instrumental in doing so much good work. I mean, to me, this guy is like I'm talking to Sachin Tendulkar, of like forest conservation. So to me, to be allowed the opportunity to talk to them, to in fact even maybe ask questions that I wouldn't otherwise if I was just talking to them. Like I took, like, I was very liberal with my questions, I feel, because the first question I asked him was, why is your name Stalin? Like, what's the story behind that? Because, I mean, like, of course, Joseph Stalin, like this massive Russian dictator, right? And you're named after him. It's very interesting to me. And his answer was also like fascinating answer. And of course, he's not named after a mass murderer. He was named after. It was a different time in which he was named. So that also speaks to the changing notions of time and history. But anyway, that's not important. But for me, yeah, I am able to take such liberties because these people are just such nice human beings, man. I mean, they're just like top-notch people, not very arrogant, but at the same time self-confident, realizing that their betterment is in the betterment of society. They're not selfish, individualistic beings. So it's always been a treat to interview them because they've been so open about it, and they've been so great.
I think that could be a common trait with people working in any kind of environmental cause or space, because you really are so aware of how you're significant but you're small in the larger scheme of things.
Yes.
That, I think, that comes to you every time, every single day, and in everything that you do, and I feel like that's what keeps you so grounded. Pun not intended, but it works. So
That's such a beautiful phrase, Anushka. Significant but small but significant. I mean, wow. I'm going to use that one a lot more because it just perfectly encapsulates my philosophies also in many ways. That just because you're small doesn't mean you're insignificant, and just because you're significant doesn't mean you're massive. So this is, wow. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's something I'm going to think about.
Definitely, yeah, because that comes back to me every time I'm in nature. Like every time you spend time in a natural space, you realize you're just a speck of dust, like there's so many beautiful, amazing forces at play which we don't even know all about. We're far from it.
Absolutely.
And it has its own beauty to it, that sense of, oh, I'm actually really tiny in this large, like, ecosphere. It's kind
Yeah.
of beautiful.
But at the same time, just because I'm small doesn't mean I'm useless or insignificant or I don't matter. You know, like
It's made up of all of us together. If we didn't
Yes,
exist, it
yes.
wouldn't exist, you know.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's kind
and
it's like every drop makes the ocean, and like a billion is just 1 billion ones, all put together, all added up. And if you take one away, it doesn't seem like much, but I mean, one is just as important as the billion because, yeah, like you said, it's small but significant. Beautiful. Small but significant. I really like this phrase, yeah. it's
of. Go for it. Use
I'm
it.
gonna
Use
write
it
it down
somewhere.
for